After 2 years of marriage, my wife brought up an idea. She suggested that the four of us should spend the new year in Hainan. However, we only have a 3-year-old daughter. I asked her joyfully, "Is it because we're expecting a second baby?" A flicker of panic flashed across her eyes. She quickly replied that I must have misheard. I didn't press her further, thinking she must be planning some kind of surprise for me. But as soon as my business trip flight landed, I saw her and our daughter running toward our neighbor and his son. Just as I was about to walk over and greet them, I overheard her speaking nervously. "Good thing I cleverly changed the travel plans. This way, we can avoid him. And the four of us can enjoy a proper new year." It was only then that realization struck me, the true meaning of a family of four. With a calm smile, I approached them and kindly suggested, "In that case, Bai Ningbing, why don't we go ahead and get divorced first?" When my wife, Bai Ningbing, heard my voice, she looked at me awkwardly. "Zhang Ren, what are you doing here?" I ignored her question, reiterating calmly, "Bai Ningbing, let's end this." "Zhang Ren," she snapped, her tone carrying a hint of annoyance. "You've gone far enough." If this had been before, I would have backed down the moment I saw her starting to get angry. But now, as my gaze swept over their family of four, I remained composed and said, "I'm serious." Bai Ningbing caught the meaning behind my look, and in an instant, she realized why. I was bringing this up out of nowhere. A trace of guilt flitted across her face. But when she opened her mouth to explain, her tone remained arrogant. "We just saw you were away on a business trip, so I thought we could tag along with Jiping and Yuanyuan. After all, we're neighbors, right? Isn't it good to build a better relationship? Do you really have to be so petty?" I looked toward our daughter. She was holding onto our neighbor Yin Jiping's large hand, her little mouth pouting, and her round eyes glaring at me. Bai Ningbing noticed our daughter's expression and pretended to scold her playfully. "Yi, how can you glare at your daddy like that?" Then turning back to me with a smile, she said, "All right, Zhang Ren, since we've run into each other here, why don't we all just celebrate the new year together?" If this had been before, whenever Bai Ningbing smiled and made a request like this, I would have agreed without hesitation. But now, in this moment, as I looked at the atmosphere between the four of them, so harmonious before my arrival, only to be disrupted by my presence, I suddenly felt so tired. "No need," I said. "Once the new year is over, let's head to the civil affairs office and get our divorce papers." With that, I turned to leave. But Bai Ningbing wasn't about to let me go that easily. She blocked my path, angrily questioning me. "Zhang Ren, what's that supposed to mean? I just brought our daughter to spend New Year with the neighbors, and you're blowing it up into this? How can you be so narrow-minded?" "Narrow-minded?" The bitter smile. "Bai Ningbing, this isn't the first or second time you've cozied up to Yin Jiping behind my back. In the past, I always turned a blind eye, thinking that since I'm often at work and not at home, if something urgent happened, Yin Jiping could help you and our daughter. But now, I finally understand just how wrong I've been." Seeing me silent, Bai Ningbing scolded me coldly, calling me unreasonable. Jiping's wife passed away more than 2 years ago. I just wanted the kids to have a happy new year. Am I wrong for that? Even my daughter Yi chimed in. "Bad daddy made mommy sad. Yi doesn't like you anymore." I pressed my lips together, looking at the pair before me, a child and an adult, the pain in my heart unbearable. "Ningbing, don't argue anymore. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have come here for the new year." Yin Jiping seized the opportunity to speak, his gaze signaling to his son, Yin Yuanyuan. Yuanyuan immediately squeezed out a few tears. "Ningbing auntie. Yi, don't be sad. Dad and I will leave right away." Bai Ningbing, already full of resentment toward me, exploded instantly upon seeing Yuanyuan's tears. "Zhang Ren, you're a grown man and yet you're less understanding than a child. Do you even know what it means to be reasonable? And to think you're a postgraduate? Did all that education go to the dogs?" The room fell silent for a moment. Yi clapped her hands in agreement. "Daddy is worse than a dog." I clutched my aching heart, my gaze wounded as I looked at my daughter. "Yi, is that really how you see your daddy?" Zhang Yi seemed startled by my expression, and instinctively hid behind Yin Jiping. "Brother Zhang Ren, don't scare the child. Yin Jiaping said, holding Zhang Yi protectively, while Bai Ningbing frowned deeply and pulled Zhang Yi into her arms. She shot me a look full of contempt. Zhang Ren, if you're here just to stir up trouble, then get lost now. I let out a laugh and nodded. Alright, I'll get lost. See you at the Civil Affairs office. As I turned and walked away in the opposite direction, her mocking voice followed closely behind. Sure, Zhang Ren. Let's see if you actually go through with it. Have some guts for once. And don't come crawling back, begging me for another chance. A bitter smile tugged at the corners of my lips as I fought back the urge to cry. Don't worry, I muttered. I absolutely won't. Seeing me actually walking away, Bai Ningbing muttered a low curse in anger. I pretended not to hear it, quickening my steps as I left. It wasn't until I got into a taxi, completely leaving the airport behind, that I finally let out a long, deep breath. As the scenery outside the window blurred by, my thoughts drifted far away. Bai Ningbing and I had met in college. We were in the same department, but I was a year ahead of her. I was a well-known model student in our department. Before meeting her, my days consisted of eating, sleeping, and spending every spare moment in the lab. Life was calm yet monotonous. Later, when my professor started mentoring freshmen, Bai Ningbing naturally became my junior. She was beautiful, undeniably the campus belle of our department. The line of people chasing her stretched from the east gate to the west gate of campus, but her academics were an absolute mess. And our professor was famously strict. If her grades didn't meet the standard, she would have one chance for a retake. Fail that too, and she would have to repeat the course. It was in this tense environment that Bai Ningbing and I developed a connection. After she failed her first exam, she was desperate to pass the retake, so she kept pestering me to help her study. At first, I was annoyed, but her cheerful and adorable personality, combined with her beautiful face, made it impossible for me to stay angry. Before long, we became great friends. Later, with the mindset of no regrets in youth, I decided to pursue her. I thought for sure she would reject me, handing me a nice guy card. But to my surprise, she agreed. She even kissed me first. Under my guidance, her grades improved dramatically. We were often praised as a golden couple. Being with her, I truly felt happy. After graduating from university, I wanted to start working right away, but she persuaded me to go to graduate school, and so she waited for me for another 2 years. I once vowed that I would treat her well for the rest of my life. And I did. After we got married, I handed over my salary to her. If she said east, I wouldn't even glance west. We had a child, the fruit of our love. But life soon took a turn when our neighbor entered the picture. Ever since Yin Jiaping lost his wife, he and Bai Ningbing became closer and closer. Arguments and cold wars began between me and Bai Ningbing. Every time, it was me who gave in and apologized. I thought at least my daughter was on my side. But today, reality delivered. A harsh blow to my face. I had tried to salvage everything, but things didn't go as I had hoped. My wife and daughter were convinced that I was petty, jealous of the neighbor's success. I couldn't understand. I was their husband, their father. Why would they treat me like this? Compared to him, I felt like an outsider. Watching them live happily together, this time I've fully awakened. I've decided to completely let go. The taxi had already stopped at the hotel entrance, but I was still staring blankly out the window, lost in thought. Sir! The driver called out to me several times. Before I finally came to my senses, I forced a smile into the rearview mirror, one that looked worse than crying, and apologized. Sorry about that, driver. I've wasted your time. I'll get out now. After paying the fare, I even tipped the driver an extra 100 yuan. The driver's face lit up with a radiant smile. Thank you for the tip. Happy New Year. My hand, which had just opened the door, paused for a moment. I returned the smile and replied, Happy New Year. Even though that Happy New Year was bought with money, the driver's genuine joy managed to infect me a little. In stark contrast to everything I'd just endured, it only made my heart ache even more. After meeting up with my colleagues at the hotel, someone suggested we head to the buffet area to eat. I didn't have much of an appetite, but not wanting to ruin the mood, I followed along. Zhang Ren, one of my colleagues, Fang Yuan, elbowed me on the shoulder. Isn't that your wife and kid over there? Following his line of sight, I looked over. There they were, the family of 4, picking cakes in the dessert section. Another colleague, Sun Li, joined in the teasing. Well, Zhang Ren, so you secretly brought your wife kid along, huh? And here we are, lonely souls tonight. Well, you have a warm family waiting for you. The group erupted into laughter. The commotion caught Bai Ningbing's attention. She looked up, and her gaze met mine squarely. I saw her roll her eyes, and then look away, pretending not to recognize me. My colleagues didn't notice the tension in the air. They tugged me toward her. Yin Zhaiping noticed me too. He leaned in and whispered to Bai Ningbing, Ningbing, since Zhang Ren is here looking for you, why don't you on you in and I take her leave? As he spoke, he put down his plate and reached for Yin Yuan's hand to leave. But Dad, Yuan whined, I'm so hungry, he cried as they walked, looking back at Bai Ningbing with teary eyes. I stood at a distance, watching coldly, unmoved. My colleagues overheard their conversation too, and turned to me with puzzled looks. Zhang Ren, they asked hesitantly, what's going on here? I replied curtly, nothing, just the neighbors. My voice was so icy, even my slowest colleague could sense something was off. Realizing I wasn't willing to elaborate, they refrained from asking further questions, but they couldn't help casting curious glances at the family of 4. Under the scrutiny of so many eyes, Bai Ningbing's composure began to crack. She glared at me and snapped. Zhang Ren, enough is enough. Did you forget what you just told me earlier? What's this about then? It's only been a little over an hour, and you're already going back on your word? I'm not going back on my word. Not going back, then what is this? Zhang Ren, please keep your friends in check. Bai Ningbing's gaze swept over my colleagues standing beside me. In an instant, I understood. Bai Ningbing was standing up for Yin Zhaiping and his son, feeling they had been wronged. You're just a mean, annoying daddy. Go away. I won't let you bully Uncle Yin. Even my daughter, Zhang Yi, stretched out her little arms and positioned herself in front of Yin Zhaiping. Yin Zhaiping lightly placed his hands on Yi's small shoulders, a triumphant smirk playing on his lips. Yet outwardly, he feigned a modest demeanor. Brother Zhang Ren, don't take it to heart. Kids just say whatever comes to mind. Though his words suggested empathy, his expression and attitude betrayed his true thoughts. Zhang Yi pouted and protested angrily. Mommy says Yi always tells the truth. Yi doesn't lie. He doesn't deserve to be my daddy. Yi's right. My mommy should be as pretty as Andy Ningbing. Even Yin Yuan joined in, standing protectively in front of Yin Zhaiping, raising his little chin and shouting at me. Then, as if a brilliant idea struck him, his eyes suddenly lit up. Turning to Zhang Yi, he said excitedly, Yi, if that's the case, let Annie Ningbing be my mommy. Then we can be a real family of 4. Wouldn't that be great? Hearing this, Zhang Yi's eyes sparkled with excitement. Her eyes lit up as well. Sure. Bai Ningbing patted Zhang Yi's little head affectionately, then looked at me awkwardly. Zhang Ren, don't take it to heart. Yi's always been so innocent and naive. Children say whatever comes to mind. You shouldn't dwell on it. I pulled a smile, but my demeanor remained cold. Seeing my lack of response and increasingly indifferent attitude, Bai Ningbing's expression darkened instantly. Zhang Ren, what kind of attitude is that? I stared at Bai Ningbing's familiar face, only to find it strangely foreign. I had worked tirelessly for this family, all to give her and our daughter a better life. But as the saying goes, every gain has its loss. I earned a lot, but I sacrificed time with them. For that, I've always felt guilty. I thought Bai Ningbing would understand me, would raise our daughter well. But now I realize what she taught our daughter was how bad I was, and how amazing the neighbor uncle was. How laughable. Looking at her angry face and Yi's pouting mouth, I suddenly realized my heart didn't ache anymore. Zhang Ren, let's just leave. My colleague Fang Yuan whispered softly beside me. I grabbed his shoulder and replied, let's leave together. Zhang Ren, Stop right there. Bai Ningbing, seeing I was about to leave, hurriedly grabbed my sleeve. If you want to leave, fine. But first, apologize to Zhaiping. I shook her off, finally losing my temper. Bai Ningbing, if I've already decided to let go of you, why would I apologize? Bai Ningbing staggered from the force, looking stunned. She stared at me in disbelief. Zhang Ren, fine, let's divorce. Right here, right now. Whoever backs out is a coward. I nodded, dragging her straight to the printer. I printed out the divorce agreement I had prepared in advance. After signing my name, I handed her the pen. Sign it. Bai Ningbing hadn't expected me to act so swiftly. She was caught off guard, completely unprepared, but with everyone's eyes on her. She was trapped in the situation, humiliated and furious. Grudgingly, she scrawled her name. Yin Zhaiping's smirk was hard to suppress, though he pretended to speak with concern. Ningbing, don't do this because of me. I cut him off sharply. Shut up. Zhang Ren. Bai Ningbing's face darkened, and she flung the divorce agreement at my face. Take your stupid agreement and get lost. Her outburst ignited my simmering anger. My colleagues, sensing my rising temper, quickly pulled me away from the scene. Feng Yuan glanced at me, hesitant to speak. After a long pause, he finally said, Zhang Ren, I remember you two used to have such a great relationship. Maybe your wife's just having a bad day today? I let out a cold laugh. She's having a bad day? You've got it backward. Her mood couldn't be better right now. The group fell silent, unsure how to comfort me, but their expressions betrayed their curiosity. I knew exactly what they wanted to ask. In the end, I simply said, that's the whole story. My colleagues were stunned into silence, but I found my mood improving, strangely liberated. Zhang Ren, Feng Yuan sighed. You've really had it rough. Forget it. Come on, let's go have a drink. He patted my back and led me to a small bar next to the hotel where we were staying. Suddenly grabbed the drinks menu and pointed out every high-proof liquor on it. After a few rounds of drinks, Feng Yuan, already tipsy, raised his glass to toast me and joked, Zhang Ren, you're young, talented, and now officially one of H City's golden bachelors. Why don't I just introduce my sister to you? Startled, I quickly tried to grab his glass, but I couldn't stop him in time, and ended up getting overdrunk myself. They had to rush me to the hospital. I threw up endlessly in the hospital, only regaining some clarity by dawn the next day. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was Bai Ningbing. She was looking at me with a face full of disdain. Zhang Ren, why didn't you just drink yourself to death? Hungover. My head throbbed painfully. I massaged my temples and muttered softly, Bai Ningbing, don't come looking for trouble. Looking for trouble? She glared at me. Zhang Ren, you're the most irresponsible man I've ever met. Yi had an allergic reaction yesterday and had to be rushed to the hospital. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't reach you. Her eyes were slightly red, though I couldn't tell if it was from anger at me or worrying for our daughter. Didn't she already have her new daddy? Why would you still come to me? I frowned as I looked at her. Bai Ningbing bit her molars in frustration and suddenly slapped me hard across the face. Zhang Ren, are you even speaking like a human being? I quickly grabbed her wrist and without hesitation, slapped her back. Bai Ningbing, don't think I'm the same as before, letting you hit and scold me whenever you please. Bai Ningbing stumbled back a few steps, finally falling to the ground. Ningbing! Yin Zhaiping appeared at that moment, walking in hurriedly. He rushed over to her and helped her up. Bai Ningbing, her eyes red with tears, shook her head. Yin Zhaiping then turned to me. Brother Zhang Ren, I've always respected you, but what you've done today is beyond unacceptable. Ningbing is your wife. How can you lay a hand on her? I glanced at Bai Ningbing, her cheek already swollen, but I felt no remorse at all. So what? I replied indifferently. Just then, Yin Yuanyuan entered, holding Zhang Yi's hand. At the sight of her mother, Zhang Yi screamed and burst into tears. Mommy! She ran over, sobbing, and started hitting me with her little fists. You're a bad person. You must have hit mommy. I hate you. You're nothing compared to Uncle Yin. Yi, come on, Yin Yuanyuan said, pulling her into his arms. We're the real family of four. He's nothing. Yin Yu and Yuan held Zhang Yi tight at me with a mocking, "Your family bond. Can you quiet? You're giving me a headache." I closed my eyes, thinking that if I couldn't see it, I wouldn't be bothered by it. But Zhang Yi broke free from Yin Yu on Yuan's hold. Her tiny fists raised as she ran toward me. She hit me repeatedly, shouting insults with every strike. She cried uncontrollably, snot and tears streaming down her face. I was thoroughly annoyed. Grabbing her hand, I abruptly shoved her toward Bai Ningbing. I didn't use much force, but Zhang Yi was too young, and she fell hard onto the ground. Sitting there, she wailed loudly. Bai Ningbing panicked immediately. She rushed to hold Zhang Yi in her arms, checking her all over to see if she was hurt. After confirming she was unharmed, she glared at me with fury and disgust. "Zhang Ren, you actually laid hands on your own daughter. Are you even human anymore? You deserve to be alone and unloved. You'll never be as good as Zhaiping." For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt, but seeing the mother and daughter's accusatory faces, any guilt I had disappeared instantly. I gave a faint smile and said, "You're absolutely right." Bai Ningbing was so enraged, she lost control of her words. "Zhang Ren, don't think you can play some reverse psychology game with me. If you think acting indifferent will make me or Yi feel sorry for you, you're wrong. You don't deserve it." I had no energy left to argue with them. I simply pulled out my needle and walked out of the hospital room. After completing the discharge process, I went straight back to the hotel. Feng Yuan sent me a message, letting me know he had taken the liberty of giving me a day off, so I could rest before returning to work. Lying on the large bed in my hotel room, I couldn't help but feel a bit emotional. I had come here for a business trip just before the new year, and yet things had spiraled into this mess. Feeling restless, I set my phone aside and forced myself to sleep. But Bai Ningbing was like a ghost that refused to leave me alone. Just as I drifted off to sleep, she started calling me incessantly. "Zhang Ren, where are you? Get back here and apologize to Zhaiping." Her tone was sharp from the moment she spoke, and everything she said grated on my nerves. Yet, oddly enough, it made me laugh. "What's wrong? Your little knight in shining armor is upset and needs you? Zhang Ren, watch your mouth." I shrug. "Alright, fine, I'll shut up then." Bai Ningbing snorted but fell silent, just as I thought she had nothing more to say, and was about to hang up. A soft sigh came through the phone. "Zhang Ren, stop being so difficult, will you? Come over and apologize to Zhaiping, and I'll let go of everything from before." "Don't," I said. "Bai Ningbing, you should keep holding it against me." My response left her momentarily speechless. It seemed like she was trying hard to suppress her anger. After a pause, she spoke again, much calmer this time. "Zhang Ren, it's almost New Year. Let's not make such a big deal out of this, okay?" Before she could finish her sentence, Yin Zhaiping's low and pitiful voice interrupted from the background. "Bing Bing, does Brother Zhang Ren still refuse to forgive me? Please tell Brother Zhang Ren that it's all my fault." And Ningbing Auntie. Yin Yuan chimed in. "I was wrong too. I shouldn't have said bad things about Zhang Ren Uncle. Ningbing Auntie, please tell Zhang Ren Uncle not to be mad at me and my dad anymore, okay?" I could clearly hear by Ningbing's reaction to their words. When that father and son duo apologized to me, Bai Ningbing held her breath carefully. It was a clear sign of concern. She felt sorry for them. I chuckled bitterly to myself. These subtle gestures, I used to know them all too well. I used to act the same way toward Bai Ningbing. If she furrowed her brows, or made the smallest movement, I could immediately tell what she wanted to do, or who or had upset her. But looking at her now, she had never paid attention to my words or actions. Now she's put that neighbor and his son at the very center of her heart. "Zhang Ren," she said firmly, "this is your last chance. Come here and apologize." Her tone grew colder this time, but I didn't want that chance. Quickly pushing aside any lingering thoughts, I replied flatly, "I'm not going." "Zhang Ren," Bai Ningbing called my name stiffly, her voice dripping with clenched teeth. "Don't be ungrateful." I sighed, utterly speechless. "Bai Ningbing, who's really being ungrateful here? Or are you just deaf and can't understand human speech? We've both signed the divorce papers. All that's left is to finalize it at the Civil Affairs Office. So please stop bothering me if there's nothing else. Ningbing! I heard Yin Jiaping's voice again. I'd better leave. It seems Brother Zhang Ren's attitude hasn't changed. Once again, he began stirring things up. I quickly shot back, cutting him off before Bai Ningbing could start cursing at me. I hung up the phone without hesitation, switching my phone to do not disturb mode. I spent the next few days in peace. I began focusing entirely on work. A week later, our project was finally completed. A colleague suggested we relax at the beach for a while and enjoy the sun before heading back. I had no objections, so I joined them on the trip. We rented 3 beach umbrellas, and I ended up lying under one, sipping coconut water and feeling the sea breeze. It was utterly peaceful. Zhang Ren, Feng Yuan started, lounging with his sunglasses on. You're really something, a true workhorse. Even the client couldn't stop singing your praises. Suddenly nodded in agreement. Exactly. Just the other day, he worked overtime until 1 in the morning, and his stomach problems flared up so bad he collapsed at his desk. If the client hadn't found him and rushed him to the hospital in time, Sunley continued, I bet we'd be attending his funeral today instead of relaxing here. That's right, and the client's a beauty too. Zhang Ren. You should just marry her, Fang Yuan teased. I waved my hand with a smile. Stop it! We were laughing and joking when suddenly, Bai Ningbing's voice interrupted. Zhang Ren, your stomach problems flared up again? Why don't you take better care of yourself? I turned to glance at her briefly, and replied coldly, what does it have to do with you? Bai Ningbing froze for a moment. I expected her to lash out in anger, but she just stared at me for a long time. Then sighed, Zhang Ren, please stop being like this. I'm giving in, alright? I frowned in annoyance. What do you mean by stop being like this? Alright, I admit I said the wrong thing. Bai Ningbing raised her hands in a gesture of surrender. Look, without me by your side, your stomach problems have already flared up again. I admit that before. I admit I was a bit negligent in caring for you. But just because I was wrong, does that mean you were completely right? I quietly looked at her without responding. Though she was verbally admitting fault, her tone, demeanor, and the underlying meaning of her words all carried an air of superiority. At its core, her so-called admission of guilt was nothing more than a gesture to give me an easy way out, not a genuine acknowledgement of her mistakes. If I couldn't see through that, then I truly deserve to be manipulated. Bai Ningbing, I don't care where I was wrong. You can say whatever makes you happy. But let me tell you this. Without you by my side, I'm doing much better. Zhang Ren, you're misunderstanding me, she said. I raised my voice to interrupt her. Misunderstanding what? Bai Ningbing froze, her mouth half open, struggling to string together a coherent sentence. She bit her lip and walked closer, grabbing my arm. Just as she was about to say something, my gaze shifted past her, landing on the figures behind her. Careful what you say, Bai Ningbing, I said calmly. Your family is here. If someone overhears something they shouldn't, they might get hurt. A flicker of unease crossed her face, but she still didn't let go of my arm. I lowered my eyes, glancing at her pale, delicate hand, and smirked. Your little knight is watching us. Do you really want to keep making a scene here with me? Yet Bai Ningbing still didn't let go. Her gaze remained fixed on me. But there was something so complex in her eyes that, for a moment, I couldn't quite decipher it. Brother Zhang Ren, Ningbing is your wife. How could I dare to feel jealous or hurt? Yin Jiaping lowered his head, his voice dripping with pity. Brother Zhang Ren, please don't speak to Ningbing like that. You'll make her sad. Zhang Ren, uncle, Auntie Ningbing is a good woman. Please don't treat her this way. It's my dad and me who don't deserve her. Yin Yuan added, his head also lowered. The two of them looked so pitiful, as if someone owed them a fortune. It was almost exhausting to watch. Finally, Bai Ningbing couldn't take it anymore. Without hesitation, she let go of me and turned to comfort the father and son gently. I won't allow you to belittle yourselves like this, she said. Zhang Yi stood between the father and son, tilting her small head upward. She's my mommy, and she's also Yuan's mommy. They already told me. We're the real family. Bai Ningbing's expression changed dramatically. She whipped her head around to look at me. No, Zhang Ren. Let me explain. Brother Zhang Ren. Yi is still young, she doesn't know what she's saying. Don't take it to heart. Feng Yuan, who had been watching quietly, finally couldn't hold back anymore. Taking off his sunglasses, he leaned back and muttered, "Guess I didn't check the lunar calendar before going out today. This sea breeze has such a ... Bai Ningbing snapped at him sharply. Feng Yuan, who said we're family with you? You're disgusting, Bai Ningbing. Feng Yuan shot back. Seriously shameless, I furrowed my brows, taking in the four of them with a look of disdain. Bai Ningbing, how could you possibly think it's acceptable to talk this way? Yin Jieping held back the angry Bai Ningbing, his voice cautious and tentative. Brother Zhang Ren, you're right. I don't deserve to have a family. Feng Yuan, noticing the growing crowd, decided to stir the pot further. Why be a decent person, he said deliberately, when you can play the homewrecker instead? That's so interesting. The onlookers, hearing this, began whispering and pointing. I felt an immediate headache coming on, grabbed my colleague and left the beach in a hurry. I walked quickly, and Bai Ningbing jogged after me, grabbing my arm with a somewhat forlorn expression. Zhang Ren, tomorrow is New Year's Eve. Let Yi and me spend it with you, please? I pulled my arm away, giving her a cold, emotionless glance. No need. As we left, Bai Ningbing stayed rooted in place, suddenly glanced back and asked, Zhang Ren, you're not getting soft, are you? No! Back at the hotel, my colleagues packed their things and left to catch their flights. I stayed behind, sitting alone on the hotel sofa, lost in thought. I wondered what I should do to pass the new year tomorrow. Before I knew it, I had dozed off on the sofa. When I woke up, it was already late morning. Picking up my phone, I saw dozens of missed calls from Bai Ningbing yesterday, along with countless text messages. At a glance, they were all superficial apologies and empty pleasantries. I couldn't understand her at all. I had already made my feelings clear, staying far away from their family of four. I wasn't interfering, wasn't causing trouble. So what more could she possibly be dissatisfied with? She just had to make my life unpleasant. Tossing my phone aside, I quickly got ready and headed out onto the streets. I thought the streets would be quiet today, but instead they were bustling with people, all smiling and brimming with festive joy. Of course, New Year's Eve is a day for family reunions. Last year, I had spent it sweetly with my family of three. This year, it's just me all alone. Suddenly, I missed my late parents terribly. One booked the earliest flight available, intending to go back home to pack my things. Before returning to my hometown in Hangzhou, winter nights fall quickly. By the time I boarded the plane, fireworks were already lighting up the sky outside. While waiting for my luggage after landing, I absent-mindedly scrolled through my phone. Yin Jieping had just posted a moment on social media 5 minutes ago. Family of four celebrating New Year's Eve. In the photo, the four of them were wearing matching red sweaters, posing with peace signs in front of the camera. I couldn't help but sigh. How warm and cozy. My phone buzzed with a notification. I opened it. A holiday greeting from Bai Ningbing, inviting me to join their New Year's Eve gathering. I ignored her message, stuffed my phone back into my pocket. But her call came through right after. I didn't answer, letting it ring endlessly. Finally, annoyed by her persistence, I blocked her number entirely. When I got home, I quickly packed up my belongings. The things I couldn't take with me, I threw into the trash pile without hesitation. Just as I was about to leave with my luggage, the phone in my pocket suddenly started speaking.